this song.
Yeah, it was because that's what I was thinking while you were gone. Welcome back, everyone.
Sure.
Welcome back, Molly. You were always on my mind.
Thank you, Tiff. I appreciate it. Same to you.
Yeah,
It's good to be back, and I'm really looking forward to today's show because our first guests this morning are talking about autism. It's, of course, a spectrum disorder that affects a lot of people, and there are some new numbers that actually prove it. The United States Center for Disease Control and Prevention estimates, get this, that 1 in 68 American children is on the autism spectrum, and that's 10 times more common in just the past 40 years. So we've invited a special panel of women today to talk about autism, and they all have one thing in common. They want to raise awareness and acceptance.
That's right. First, we've got two moms who have children with autism. Chris Nyman's son, Seth, just turned 17. Give a little wave there, Chris.
Yeah.
Oh,
there he is.
There's your son. Wonderful. He was diagnosed at age of 4, and Chelsea Booty has 2 adolescents on the spectrum, Noelle and Justice. Chelsea is also the co-founder of a nonprofit group called Good Friends, Inc., which you've probably heard of as well.
We also have Judy Cohen with Mikey, which is about a school day through the eyes of a child with autism. Welcome to all of you. Super excited to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for inviting us.
We could barely wait. It was during the break. We were already asking all these questions, and I think that's real symbolic of how people feel about this topic.
And you've got 3 awesome women here.
Yeah, we know. Absolutely. That's why we invited you. And I think, you know, one of the things I think about autism, I want to get to misconceptions and myths in just a little bit, because I've talked to all 3 of you about this, and there are a lot of them out there. But just a little bit about your background. Your son is 17 now, so he's been through the toddler years, the elementary school years, into the high school years. Raising a teenager is hard, but I would think when they have autism, there are extra challenges with it.
There have been a lot of challenges with the teens. Hormones has played a really big part into behaviors that are atypical for my son.
Yeah, hard.
Yeah, I could definitely relate to that. I mean, I think puberty has a really exquisite effect on the neurology of our kids. I mean, they've got so much going on anyway, and then you add the unpredictability of the hormones, and they don't know how to react to it, and it can really, I had heard so many parents say that puberty is like flipping a switch. And I said, that's impossible. Those must be some really out of touch parents, because puberty is a process. This isn't an overnight thing, but really in my son too, I could circle a date on a calendar and went, this is when some things really change. So just to be prepared for that and know that it is okay to reach out and ask for extra help during those years.
So you're saying with autism, it's pronounced even more, the hormonal switch?
I think so. I think we experienced it at about 11, a little bit earlier. He grew really fast, very quickly. Probably got, really compared to his classmates, facial hair, just the normal things that teen boys go through. So he did that a little bit quicker. We had kind of a spike in just different behaviors, and then recently we've noticed it as well. So I think it's maybe not as pronounced, but I think with them, their sensory, they have the overload in general sometimes, and I think that just for a regular teenager, it's hard to process those changes.
For sure.
So for them, I think for my son, I mean, just the reactions are very different and unlike him, which is typical, but for a person that has the sensory processing disorder, they don't know how to even go in their room and sulk because it doesn't make sense to them.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things that we talked about was myths and misconceptions as it relates to autism. And one of the things that you said is that kids with autism are sometimes seen as being violent. And I think this is an incredibly important point, because what seems like violent or a violent reaction is really a reaction to the sensory issues that many people with autism have.
Yes, it's just an overload, and how you and I, a person that can process the things going on around them, we can calm ourselves down internally. We can shake our leg. We can do things that will calm. We know how to calm ourselves down.
Kind of self-soothe.
Yeah, and these children, they're reacting. It's like physical pain. A lot of them say that it actually hurts them to hear certain sounds or to feel certain material. And their reaction is flight. I'm afraid. I'm going to lash out, and it sometimes appears to be violent, which it can be, but at the same time they're reacting to what they cannot process around them. And I think that when you see, I've done this a million times, I'm sure you have. You're walking through the mall, you're doing something, and you see a child react, and you think, oh, they're having a tantrum. Oh my God, look at that kid. they could be just, they're overwhelmed, and their reaction is to
Tired.
get, their soothing is not like you and I. They soothe by getting physically away or don't touch me. And, you know, if you don't want somebody to touch you, you're going to push them away, you're going to push them away. So I think that it can be portrayed, and it can be violent, but I think that the misconception that every child or adult with autism is therefore it goes hand in hand, that's just not the case.
Yeah, so
my
not
child
all.
is extremely gentle, and so gentle that he's almost hypersensitive to other people's reactions and feelings and even facial expressions. So it does not go hand in hand, and I think it's just another one of those myths, and it's an unfortunate myth, because most of the kids that I know that spend time with him are just the opposite. They're very gentle.
Chelsea, what has your experience been?
Yeah, I really agree with that. I mean, you can have people have unexpected reactions to their environment. In fact, I think a really great way to understand the sensory piece is Carly Fleischman, who's a young adult with autism in Canada, did this really great 2-minute video that you can find about what it might be like to have autism and to be in a coffee shop. And so all the noises and all the smells and all of the unexpected things that happen as a result of her inability to communicate spontaneously. It doesn't mean she doesn't have thoughts that she wants to express, but she can't do it in the moment with the words. And so she's doing it with her body. And that's really, it's misunderstood, and it's unfortunate.
Judy, one of the things that you feel is a misconception or myth is that autism can be cured. At least right now it can't. You think people feel that way, or that kids maybe can grow out of it?
I have seen many parents, excuse me, told by their pediatrician, don't worry about it. As he gets older, he's going to grow out of this. He'll understand. No, that's not the case. You have to learn how to handle it. You have to be taught strategies and behavioral solutions to the child's difficulties. In the school situation where I come from, after 30 years of teaching in special education, I had many children on the autism spectrum in my classrooms. The biggest teacher that we have to have are the parents. These are the people that need to come in and talk to the teacher about what their child is all about, what works, what doesn't. We need to arm teachers in our schools with a huge mass of resources and tools to help the child in the classroom succeed. We're dealing with very bright children. They need to be happy. They need to be successful. That's one of the reasons that my daughter and I wrote the book, Mikey. She is a teacher of early childhood with a specialty of autism, and we've continued to hear throughout the years from parents, the biggest problem is the children don't understand my child. The teacher doesn't understand my child. He's not doing well in school. I'm getting the calls every single day. There's behavioral meltdowns going on. But he's smart. He's bright. We are forgetting underneath all of these layers is a child. We are also forgetting that underneath all these layers are terrific strengths of these children. We concentrate so much on the weaknesses, we forget about the strengths that these kids bring to a classroom on a daily basis.
Well, and that's one of the things you said too, Chelsea, and the form that you kind of filled out for us is what are some of the misconceptions? You said that there are no strengths, and you feel there are a lot as a parent too.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I was just at Cudahy Middle School with Good Friend last week, and we were with 7th and 8th graders, and I got to ask the kids, you know, who in here is into music? And, you know, the whole back row, they'd just come from a music class. They're raising their hands, and I said, well, my 12-year-old daughter with autism is in 7th grade, and she's going to state for her solo piece. She sings this soprano piece in Italian. There she is.
Look at
No
that.
way.
Yeah.
In Italian.
In Italian.
Whoa.
So yeah, she's amazing, and so there she is on the Figureheads music video for We All Fit, and she's a phenom. I mean, she's amazing, and so you know, part of the way her brain is wired is she has perfect pitch. So you really have to focus on those strengths because those
Here's
kids are
that
going,
video,
wow.
right?
Yeah,
what is this
that's
all
it.
about?
This is We All Fit is by the Figureheads, and there you see Jeremy Bryan, and they did this great thing for Good Friend. We had this great 2-year collaboration, and they wrote this song for us that we're putting in our new elementary school peer sensitivity video of the same title. And so this is up on YouTube now, and I'll bet you the Morning Blenders could get it to 15,000 views today. Because that's right on the edge. But it's a really great thing to be able to show in schools or you know, maybe with youth groups that you have or something. We've heard of all kinds of ways that it's being used around the world.
You know, we have increased our awareness and our diagnosis. That's key. but we haven't increased the knowledge of our school systems on what to do to make a child successful. And that, I believe the strongest about. How can we help teachers in our regular ed classrooms, because that's where many of the children on the spectrums are placed. If you are acquainted with that special education language, that LRE, least restrictive environment, many children on the spectrum are placed in regular ed classrooms. But we aren't giving the teachers the resources and the tools to learn what to do.
Well, and with kids, you're not going to have acceptance and understanding unless kids are in less restricted, unless they have exposure. And I think that's a blessing to be in classes with kids who are different. I mean, and in the end, we all know if you have more than one child, you know that everybody learns differently. And the same is true with kids with autism or any other challenge they might face, or in any area where they have strengths and weaknesses.
It's all about knowledge. It's all about education. We have to teach children and we have to teach adults what's the right thing to do. And children on the spectrum need to be taught social skills. They do not get them like other children do. We have to teach what's appropriate and what's not.
How about for people watching today too, when they come up to you and talk? You know, our executive producer sent us this great article of things you should never say to a parent with a child who has autism. And there's two that, you know, are the top two. They say the first one, well, is your child a musical genius? What's their special strength? Which is kind of funny because, Chelsea, here your daughter has this wonderful special strength, but people think of Rain Man. They think of all these, you know, stereotypical
or
topics.
Extreme examples.
Yes, extreme examples. Is that something that people say to you, and do you wish they wouldn't say that to you?
Oh, we could spend the next 4 hours talking about the things that people have said. I've had, you know, really nasty things said, and really kind things said.
What's the one thing you want people to say to you?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I would like someone to, if they're curious, you know, instead of staring, to come up and ask and say, you know, I've been watching your son and I'm wondering, you know, is he, and even what's, in a nice way, you know, what's wrong with your son, or can you tell me about him, you know?
Or can you tell me how I could interact best with him?
Yeah, it's really weird. We've always integrated him into public situations. We just felt it was important to do. So I think I would like someone to just come up and even just ask me, what is autism? Can you tell me about it? You're right. I've had people say, he's like Rain Man, or he's this, or the staring. And I just want to touch on what you said about teaching parents. I think having, you know, him in a classroom, I know helped him, of course, a regular classroom, but it was so cool to see the friendships that he made when he was younger, and he still will see some of these kids. But it's like in public. It's the parent, your children, the small children, look to their parents what they're doing. So when you have an adult staring at your child or pointing or laughing, their child sees that and doesn't. You can have them in a classroom of 20 kids, half with autism, half not, but they're still going to go with what their parents are doing. So
they're the role models.
Yeah.
Really quickly, is there something you'd like people to say to you?
I would love for people to just kind of treat the situation like you would with any kid. What makes your kid awesome? What makes them fantastic? Because autism or not, every kid has some kind of fantastic thing going on. Yeah. You know, maybe something like, what do they want to be when they grow up? I think people have this assumption that, people with autism can't be what they want to be or do what they want to do. They'll need some support. They'll need people along the way who can do things for them to get them into adulthood and be supportive beyond. But you know, what are their dreams? What are their hopes?
Well, and I like something that Chris said to us, and that is your son's approaching that difficult age, that 18 to 22, where they can have extended high school or something, but services are limited once they sort of age out of different programs. So it's something for all of us to keep in mind and think about services to help them.
One of the things about parents, you are the best teacher. You're the best person to educate that teacher in the classroom. Before that child starts the school year, you must go in and educate the staff. You have to tell them what works, what doesn't work. If he starts giggling while there's a test going on, why is he doing that? Let them understand what creates these behaviors and understand your child. So the parent cannot be afraid to go in and say, I need to schedule a meeting at the beginning of the school year. I want to come back in 2 more months and do this again. I want to come back in February and do this again. When you are the greatest advocate for your child, you will see success and teachers will learn.
Well, and I always say, if you're not going to advocate for your kid, probably no one else is going to. So it's
Absolutely.
good information.
Ladies
a couple
were
of
great.
things. Yeah, you guys were awesome. I
Thank
want to
you.
mention a couple events. One, Chris, something that's close to your heart, a benefit that's coming up. It's the 7th annual Autism Benefit happening this Saturday, the 26th, from 1 to 5 at TG's, which is on 7th Avenue in Kenosha. Some friends of yours are putting this together.
Yes, New Vinyls, it's a band. Frank Priest and his wife Cheryl put this together, and this is their 7th year, and he has a band, and they've let my son Seth come up on stage.
That's
Wonderful.
awesome. That's going to be a great event. Also want to mention something that's close to Judy's heart because it's called Cutting Across the Spectrum. This is happening at 5 different hair salons all throughout the area: Brookfield, Whitefish Bay, Mequon, 2 others as well. You can check out our website, themorningblend.com, because you can get a haircut on Sunday, April 27th. Usually these salons are not open on Sunday, but call for an appointment because all proceeds benefit autism, which is super cool.
And the Mikey authors will be there. We will have our Mikey book. These are incredible stylists. It's a wonderful place. Indulge Studio is phenomenal.
Great. And also check out Good Friends Inc. and you can find that video that you were talking about too.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tiffany.
And make sure you like it.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, we got to push you over the top.
The 300th like. That's what I want to know.
Thanks,
Thanks,
ladies.
ladies.
Make it
It was
happen.
awesome.
Thanks, Molly.
Really
Thank you
appreciate
very
it.